History can be viewed and interpreted in numerous different ways depending on who is relaying the story. This is why we as teachers and you as students must do your best to accumulate numerous stories and facts before you interpret the history of an artifact or time period. For this class, we as teachers will explain the history and the importance of the canoe, horses, ships, and cars. We will show how these modes of transportation, as seen throughout Michigan's history, are all connected and have evolved based on the needs and wants of the people. This may sound like a mouthful now, but we will take this journey together and slowly as we dive into our state's history. Also, it is important to mention that near the end of this lesson, we will talk about how our need for transportation changed as our society did. Time and technology allowed for recreational transportation, such as the fishing boat, corvette, and snowmobile. Relax and question the background knowledge you already have of our state's history. To begin, we go back to the 17th century and look at the birch bark canoe.
As early as the 1600s, Native Americans and French fur traders used birch bark canoes to navigate the waterways of Michigan. Travel by canoe was much faster than travel by foot, which in turn made trade quicker and easier. French traders could load hundreds of furs into a single canoe, then travel along rivers and lakes to other locations where people could buy their furs. Birch bark canoes, though very simple by today's standards, were a very important part of Michigan's economy in the 17th century. Another important mode of transportation was the horse. Just as canoes were essential for travel on water, horses were an important transportation resource on land. Horses could move much quicker and carry more cargo than people could simply walking. As a result, people, goods, and ideas could travel farther and faster over land by horse than they otherwise had on foot. These simple transportation technologies served families, small communities, and basic industry in the 17th, 18th, and early 19th centuries.
In the time of the colonies, ships were used to transport cargo and people across long distances, such as from Europe to America. Cargo carried on these ships would be large objects such as furniture, belongings, and entire families. As more people settled in America, we could no longer rely on European industry and became responsible for creating our own goods. This meant we had to transport raw materials such as logs from lumbering operations and iron from mining operations to the factories for the goods to be made. Cargo from lumbering and mining operations would often be transported to a dock where it would be packaged up and put on trains for farther transport. Trains were used to transport cargo over land for long distances. Cargo such as lumber, iron, and other mining products were transported from ship docks at the harbor to factories that turned them into usable goods. Today, trains are still used to move cargo, but they are also used as a mode of human transportation as well.
In the early 1900s, cars became accessible in the U.S. due to affordable prices and both the wants and needs of individuals. For those who needed to travel quickly and efficiently or needed transportation for work, a car was a useful investment. The wants of people also created a demand for cars that were stylish and convenient. People were much more free to roam around and travel on a less structured schedule and be in control of their own transportation. Cars provided freedom. In Michigan especially, the Ford auto industry flourished and thousands of workers were employed in an assembly line fashion to put parts together for cars. They manufactured cars based on the growing demand, which helped provide more jobs and also provide accessibility for car owners. Technological advancements also created more efficient ways to assemble a car. In modern times, it is no surprise that other countries consider Americans addicted and reliant on cars for personal use. The increase of sports cars, fuel-efficient cars, family-oriented cars, and cars designed for different geographical locations prove the different purposes and needs for car owners. What greatly sets Americans apart is our modern-day wants. Nowadays, cars are often purchased to display wealth or status or just to go from place to place.
Today, some forms of transportation are used only for recreation. These vehicles exist due to the wants of the people rather than their needs. Remember that birch bark canoe? Nowadays, people still use wooden boats and canoes. However, these water vehicles are used for fishing or spending a lazy day relaxing on the lake for pleasure, not for trade or industry like the modes of transportation that came before it. Another example of a recreational vehicle is the snowmobile. You don't see anyone strapping logs and iron to the back of their snowmobile and transporting it across the state for trade. Snowmobiles fulfill the people's desire to have fun. They are not needed for trade or industry.
As you can see, the primary modes of transportation have changed throughout Michigan's history based on what people needed or wanted during a specific time period. Most modes of transportation developed out of needs, but as transportation became more accessible, people began using it more out of want than need. This ends our journey through Michigan's past to learn about the purposes of transportation throughout time. Remember, we as a class are interpreters of history. After extensive research, we are giving our interpretation, but this does not mean the learning needs to stop here. As we give facts and look at clues left behind by our ancestors, you as students are expected to continue looking for more as well.